Namaste. Welcome to Our Planet in Perspective. In today's episode, we will be in conversation with climate activists from around the globe. Our guest for today's episode, Dr. Margot Hurlbert. She is a professor and Canada Research Chair in Climate Change, Energy, and Sustainability Policy.
You've been working on participatory governance mechanisms for zero emissions by 2050.
Yes.
How does that play a significant role to climate change?
In Canada, and especially where I'm from, we're very much an oil and gas province or jurisdiction in Canada. So setting the bar, not just at reducing emissions, but actually reducing emissions to zero or net zero, so that we're not expending any emissions in our activities, our mining, our lifestyles, is an important goal for Canada. So it's one that I have been researching for about 6 years now, and it's really exciting. I can't say it's because of me, but to see the discourse change. So 6 years ago when I talked about net zero, very few people had heard about it, and now Canada is actually passing an act to achieve net zero by 2035. Wow. So it's really exciting to be at the forefront of that idea and thinking about how we actually do that.
You've also led a special report for the IPCC. Could you tell us something more about that?
Yes. Probably one of the best points in my career was leading the chapter on risk and decision making on land and climate. So I really learned a lot about the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which is the group of scientists, social scientists and natural physical scientists that get together and write reports for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And that's where we make the developed countries the agreements to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So it was an extreme honor to work on land because I'm so interested in land and water and our relationships with land and water, how we're going to adapt and how we're going to mitigate, and to lead this core group of researchers that are from various disciplines to write this chapter. The IPCC, many in Canada, and I can't speak for Asia, but think the IPCC is very radical and very advanced. Their science is pushing the limits, but I can assure you that the IPCC is very conservative. So when we're writing the reports, it has to be published literature. So something that's already been researched and published, so it's probably 4 years old. So it's already something that I call stale, old. And then it goes through an approval process by governments. And the governments will take issue with anything that's moving too much of an agenda. So it's actually very, very conservative in its findings and its warnings. If anything, the academics and the academic literature, listening to them outside of the IPCC would be a really good idea.
How difficult do you think it is for a world that's functioning entirely on fossil fuel energy to shift to the alternative sources of energy that are climate friendly?
So in the IPCC, there's socioeconomic pathways. There's different ways to achieve net zero. It's not just one. We talk a lot about technology, and I talk myself a lot about power production, energy technologies that will get us to net zero, because we cannot burn fossil fuels. We just cannot do it unless we're going to do very expensive and somewhat questionable technologies that are really not proven, like geoengineering, if you've heard about creating something that mimics a volcano. These are really outlandish solutions, but there are in industry and oil and gas some solutions like carbon capture and sequestration, like putting greenhouse gases back into the geological formation of the earth that we've been doing for 40 years. So there are certain things that we can do. We need to move to electric vehicles, and we need our electricity to be generated by clean and renewable sources.
How do you think we can find a balance between our Western knowledge and indigenous knowledge? Is there a way to bring them together and take them forward?
I truly believe that there is, and I truly believe that diversity is so important, but by diversity, we need to realize that individual people are diverse and special and not balance them as equal or subservient or rank them or compare them in any way, that we really need to give Indigenous people and local knowledge-based people their time to share their knowledge and share it with other people. But having said that, we need natural and physical science. We know the climate is changing, and Indigenous people know it's changing, and it's not something within their lived memory. So we all have to work together as scientists and knowledge keepers in solving this dilemma. We call it the Anthropocene, which means humans are changing the world in a manner that's never happened before. So we really need to roll our sleeves up together in order to solve this.
And humans need to change the world for the better and not the worse.
Correct. And that's where the social science, but the Indigenous relations and knowledges about caring and caring for Mother Earth are so important for us to be hearing at this point.
We will be back next week with a new episode. Until then, hope you have a great week ahead. Namaste.